Hi friends! I hope you have all had a good week and that you're staying safe and that you're staying healthy. I am excited to be back here with you this week learning about what God has to say in His Word. Remember that our Bible story comes from the Bible, and the Bible is perfect and true, and that's where we get wisdom, and that's how we get to know who God is. So, if you guys can remember, at the beginning of August, we began our study through the Bible, and we began in Genesis, the first book of the Bible, and we're studying the Bible all the way through Revelation. And we haven't read every single chapter or every single verse, which I hope you do get to at some point in your life, read every single chapter and every single verse of the Bible. But for now, we're just focusing on some of the stories, and we have gotten to know a lot about who God is and His love for His people through our study of the Bible. And if you've missed any of those stories so far, you can click on the link that's in the description of this video, and you can watch all of the Bible stories. They're right there in order for you. Or if you just want to review, sometimes I like to go back in and just give myself a little refresher and a reminder of the stories that we've learned so far too. So you can do that. But today we'll be in a new book of the Bible, and it's called Deuteronomy. And we'll be learning about how Moses said goodbye to the Israelites. But before we talk about today's story, I want to remember with you all what we've learned about Moses so far. And it's okay if you're just joining us, maybe even for the first time. Welcome if you're joining City Light Kids virtually for the first time, and we'll kind of catch you up on what we know about Moses so far. Now, so Moses is an Israelite, and he was born in Egypt. But when he was a baby, Pharaoh, who was the leader of everybody in Egypt, wanted all of the Israelite baby boys to be killed because he was scared of the Israelites. But God saved Moses, and Moses' mom, when he was a baby, put him in a basket by the Nile River. So here's the Nile River. And Pharaoh's own daughter went and found Moses as she was walking along the banks of the Nile River, and she made sure that he was cared for. So Moses was saved, and he stayed safe, and he grew up, and he was working as a shepherd. And one day when he was working as a shepherd, he saw there was a bush that was on fire. It was burning, but the bush didn't burn up. So Moses walked towards the bush, and he heard the voice of the living God, the God that created the heavens and the earth, and the God that is still alive. And God showed up for Moses in the burning bush, and God told Moses who he was, and he told Moses that he had a plan for his life, just like he has a plan for all of our lives. God's plan for Moses' life was to go back to Egypt and to care for the Israelites and to help the Israelites get out of Egypt and into the promised good land that God had for them. So Moses, after he met God in the burning bush, he went back to Egypt, and and through the plagues and through a bunch of other stuff, God used Moses to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. And then we have been learning about the Israelites on their journey into the promised land. It's taken them longer than expected, and they haven't always obeyed God during the whole time, and they've had some hiccups, but God has been good and faithful, and He's cared for His people, and He is still going to bring His people into the promised land. So we learned about one of those specific stories is we learned about how God performed a miracle, and He when the Israelites were running away from the Egyptians that were trying to kill them and get them to come back to Egypt, they came up to the Red Sea, and God opened the Red Sea, a huge sea, and the Israelites passed through the middle of the sea on dry ground, which was a crazy, crazy miracle. So we are picking up on our story today after the Israelites crossed through the Red Sea, and a few other stories have happened, but the Israelites in our story today are just on the edge of the promised land. They're about to go into the promised land. But Moses, the man who has been leading them, is going to say farewell to the Israelites, which is crazy because he's the one who's been leading them this whole entire time. And our story point today says that Moses reminded the people to keep God's covenant. So I want you guys, I'm going to play a little 30-second timer to be thinking about reflecting on what has happened so far, what are some things that stuck out to you, and what do you think might happen in the future. So what has happened so far that you remember about Moses' life, and what do you think is going to happen in today's episode if you have any predictions. So take 30 seconds to think about that, and then I'll come back on the screen.